This one's for anyone who wants to own apartment buildings, but they don't have the money or the skills to buy one yet. Our guest today at age 23 was inspired by YouTube to try a strategy called wholesaling real estate, ended up making $20,000 on his very first deal. My name's David Lecco. I created a process that's helped people close their first deal 10,000 times in all 50 states with the marketing tool called DealMachine. And this is the podcast for 10xing your income and replacing your W-2.
So at 20 years old, a few years later passed, I come across a YouTuber, Jerry Norton, and I saw, wholesaling. And I was like, what is this? You don't have to have money down. You don't need a credit. What is this? I'm 20 years old, no money, like average credit. I had nothing, right? So I was like, this seems pretty interesting. And so a buddy of mine named Aldo and I, we learned about it. We got into it. And I kid you not, man, we did so much research on this, but not all the research, right? We drove around neighborhoods. We found some distressed properties. We skip traced their addresses. But when it came down to the call them, we were terrified. We didn't know what to do, right? We were afraid that we'll make some bad mistakes. Like we didn't know what to say. We didn't know what was the right approach, how to comp these properties. And our biggest fear was getting a property in the contract and not finding a buyer in time and, being responsible for the property. So we quit. We stopped wholesaling, actually. We gave up. And a year later, at 21, I got a job where I went to an interview for a Volkswagen job as a car salesman. And during the interview, the gentleman was named Pedro, the manager. I asked him, like, hey, what's that board to my right? Because I see a board on my right. And he's like, it represents each individual, each salesman, and each tally mark represents a car sold for the month. I'm like, okay, cool. What's the record? And he tells me, it's like, 24, 25, something like that. And since a kid, I always had this confidence in myself, knowing that I can do anything. And I looked at him dead in the eyes, like I'm looking at you now. And again, mind you, I have no real sales experience besides selling shoes at the mall, right? I look at him dead in the eyes and I tell him, I can beat that. Straight face, serious, and I tell him that. And I'm not sure if he gave me the job because I said that, or maybe because he just wanted to see if I was a talker and, whatnot. But I ended up getting the job. And that first month in, man, I sold 0 cars. I didn't know what I felt like an idiot. I was like, this sucks. And this was Christmas time when I started the job. And January rolls around. We're actually, in backtrack, December 31st before the new year happens, we're leaving the dealership. It's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. I sold 0 cars. The other 3 guys who joined the company at the same time as me sold 2 or 3 cars. And I felt like a failure. I looked up to one of the veterans there. His name was William. And I asked him, like, hey, man, what am I doing wrong? What do I have to do to get a deal? And he looks at me. And he tells me with a serious face, be yourself. Because at the time, I was just wearing the suit, but I wasn't myself. I wasn't being the charismatic kid that was playing around with the customers like I was selling shoes. I took it as a more serious job where I had to be more stern, more, down to the numbers, not being friendly, right? When you go to a dealership nowadays, everyone's like, hey, how you doing today? They're getting to know you. But I had the wrong mindset in it. And so that next month, January rolls around, I ended up selling my first car. I was so happy. I remember calling mom. I was like, oh my God, I did it, right? Like I got a deal done. And I ended up selling like 2 more cars that month. And February rolls around, I sold 5 cars. And then, March comes around, I sold 15 cars. And then the next month, I ended up selling 29 cars.
You beat it.
I beat it. And I remember at that moment, I was like, I looked back at life, I was like, okay, I'm ready. Now is the time I can do it. I've learned how to talk to people. I learned how to negotiate. I learned how to overcome some objections, not all, but some stuff. I felt more prepared than I was the first time when I got to the business, right? So I talked to my manager and I explained to him, like, hey, I really want to do this. This is something I've always dreamed about as a kid, and he understood and he allowed me. And he actually said it, it's honorable for me to tell that to him and to take that leap, because at the time I was making great money with the dealership. Like there was no point for me leaving, but it wasn't making me happy in the aspect of, I have this idea where if I don't do if I don't complete the dreams I had and I'm in that deathbed and I'm looking back at life like, man, I really should have took that risk and I didn't, I'll be disappointed in myself. And I tell my friends this, I'd rather try something, believing in it, and failing knowing that I at least tried, right? Rather than not knowing what's going to happen and still failing, right? I ended up leaving and I got back into wholesale. This is, last year in 2023. I took that leap of faith. I would do Uber and DoorDash during the daytime to have some money. And around evening, I would get on the phone, start making calls, dial in, and nothing was working out. I was able to talk to customers, but I couldn't find the buyers, and I couldn't find comps. I couldn't do comps properly for residential properties. And I ended up joining a Discord group called REI Rev. And in that Discord group, I magically ran by this kid. His name is Josh, an awesome guy, awesome friend. He introduced me to wholesaling land, and that changed everything. That changed everything, man. Like it was like the key. I was like, oh, this is it. This is the key to it. He taught me how to find vacant land. He taught me how easy it was. He taught me where to find these buyers and whatnot, and how to comp it. And I was like, wow, why didn't I think of this the first time? You know, it was such an eye opener. And so, you know, for about 3 months, Josh and I, we grinded. We would make these calls. We would pull the list. We will, you know, try to get a deal going on. But during that moment, to be honest with you too, David, I had no money because I was doing DoorDash and Uber, and you don't really make that much money doing that, especially when I was trying to balance that with calls. So I got a loan from my dad to help me with some of my bills. And maybe 2 months passed. I haven't paid my dad back because I had no money really to you know, send him, since I was making little money and I just believed in wholesale. 1 month goes by and he calls me, and I know what this call might be. And he calls me, he's like, hey, let's have dinner together. Let's just talk tonight. And I was like, oh, man, I know what it's about. And I felt so nervous, but I just knew how to man up and take it. So we go have dinner and we're talking, and he looks at me dead in the eyes and he says, hey, you know, I don't think it's going to work out. I think you should get a job again or go back to school or do something. Right. And at that moment, I had to show him or like I had to persuade him to believe in me. I told him, I was like, Dad, I promise, trust me on this one. And I forgot, I left this out, but let me say this. At that time, that same month where I went to dinner with him, we had a deal under contract. We had 2 deals under contract, actually. They were in closing already with the title company, but he didn't know any of that because I just wasn't giving all the information out just at the time because I wasn't sure if it wasn't closed. And if it, you know, didn't close, I would look like an idiot, right? So I didn't want to say anything just yet. So I tell him at the dinner table, I'm like, Dad, it's going to close. I have this property. Trust me on this one, please. Like, just give me the last month, right? I promise if it doesn't work out, I'll get a job, I'll go to school, whatever it takes, but just trust me on this. And he took a deep breath. He thought about it. He's like, all right, that's fine. And I was like, yes. I went home and I just went all into it. I didn't do Uber. I didn't do anything because I knew if this deal wouldn't went through, my life would change forever. And so I did. Me and Josh, we pulled lists from the counties. We pulled tax delinquency report, probate list, and other government lists that you can get to. And that's what we use. We literally put them on the spreadsheet, Microsoft Excel. We highlighted the properties that were good. We didn't have a CRM, and we would call every single one of them. But we had that deal closed, and I remember waking up with it was a $40,000 total deal. We split it. I made $20,000 from it. I remember waking up in the morning and I saw that in my bank account with the wire alert from Chase Bank saying you're getting an incoming balance of 20 something. I was like, no way. Yeah,
That's crazy.
I woke up and I was like, wow. And I sent the screenshot to my parents.
Notification you've never seen before.
Yeah. And I was like, wow. I was I wanted to tear up, not in essence of like sadness, but like proud. Like, man, I went through these ups and downs for sure. And it was tough. And it was amazing. But I sent it to him. I paid him in full, and I kept going. And so far, I've closed more than about 5 deals. I closed my first residential property this year, this past month in January. So now I'm doing both residential and land. And I guess the thing I want people to take away from this little speech I gave out is you have to have some level of self-belief, and you have to be resilient in wholesaling or just in anything you do, right? Because if you don't have either of those, then when you come across that roadblock, you're going to quit. And you don't want to quit. You want to keep going. And maybe it's not your time right now, but it will happen, man. Like I thought it was my time at 20 years old. I thought it was going to be like every other YouTuber or TikToker you see saying, oh, I made X amount of dollars in my first 30 days. Whatever. That's not always true. My dad's saying that I love he says this, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And it's so true what that means. So I want people to realize that you have to keep going and you can't quit, because the moment you quit, you're going to let yourself down and you're going to let those dreams die. No matter what business it is, right? Like, it doesn't have to be real estate. It can be anything. If you want to be the best chef, if you want to be the best janitor, whatever the case is, don't quit if you come across that first roadblock. You got to keep going. And we did it with no money. We literally did it with little money. I think Josh was 21 at the time. I was 23 and I turned 24 a few months from now. But yeah, we pulled the list from the counties. We put that in a Microsoft Excel sheet. We scrubbed that list of thousands of people. We highlight the good ones. We called them. We went through the ups and downs, and we kept going, right? And some people want to quit after that, and that's not how you do things in life. You got to keep going. Like Tom Brady, right? He's a great example. He was like one of the lowest picks in the draft, but he kept going, and now he's Hall of Famer. He's the best quarterback of all time. No one can compete.
Right. I can't fail if I don't quit. You could just
exactly.
keep going.
You just keep going, and it's tough. And another thing too, people have to realize, especially in this day and age, don't believe everything on social media. Like, of course, it's possible to make $10,000, $20,000, $5,000 in 1 month doing wholesaling. It's possible for sure, but it doesn't mean everyone's going to do it. It doesn't mean it's always going to happen. You have to accept the fact that you're going to come across those months that nothing comes, and you got to be resilient to keep going, because if you quit, man, that's the worst mistake you ever make in life. Because maybe when you are on your deathbed and you look at it and you're like, man, what would happen if I did keep going?
Yeah.
Right.
Hey guys, if you know you want to quit your job in the next 3 months, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast, because we've got some incredible frameworks with step-by-step instruction that you're not going to want to miss. Also, leave us a rating and review to let us know your favorite parts and why you want to get financial freedom.
Do you remember how much you made that month you sold 29 cars?
Oh yeah, it was $16,000. I have a picture of it.
That's great. That's amazing. Yeah. So you quit that because you wanted to do wholesaling. I like the fact that you said, I need to follow through with my dreams, even though you probably need to quit that job. Was there something about wholesaling that was more appealing than selling cars to you as well?
To be quite honest with you, David, the end goal for me is to own apartment complexes, Section 8 properties, because I grew up from some of them, and I know how some owners treat the properties, and I want to be a different individual. I want to take care of the families that live in there. So my end goal in life is to help people and do stuff like that. Wholesale is more of an entry point for me to make the money and to get experience in real estate. But I knew if I stayed in the car industry, going in every day and just making that money, I wasn't going to be happy. Maybe I'm financially stable, right? Maybe I am making this. I'm not going through those struggles. But I'm not growing as an individual. I'm not taking those leap of faith, right? Like everyone else does. Like I always grew up watching those movies where someone like The Wolf of Wall Street, right? I love those type of movies where they do something, crazy and it works out for them. I love stuff like that because it's a great feeling. Like when I didn't realize it's what I'm telling you too until you texted me and you sent me that message saying, hopefully this inspires one entrepreneur. And I look back at my life and I was like, man, I've been through a lot, and it was well worth it to where I am now. Like I'm blessed and grateful that I went through those struggles because it made me more resilient in the industry, not even just in real estate, but in life itself. Like when I know I'm not having money coming in, I know I got to keep going. I'm not just going to stay in bed and cry about it and be like, oh, how am I going to pay my bill? I got to get out there and do something. Right. But wholesaling itself is an interesting business because it doesn't involve, I don't want to say it doesn't involve money. You have to put at least somewhat money to get a quicker result. Obviously, you can do it with no money, but it's going to be a little bit longer for sure. But the big thing for me was it didn't really involve credit, and I didn't have to buy the property myself, so I was able to make the money like that. And yeah.
Yeah, so if you say the car dealership, you weren't going to get the experience to eventually own apartment buildings, right? You wanted to actually, and you were probably capped out at the salary too, right? Like how many cars can you really even sell in a month? I mean, 29 might have been close to the peak, right?
Yeah, that was actually, this was right before COVID. So
you got out of there at the right time.
Yeah, well, interesting enough, I was talking to a coworker and he told me like, no, actually when COVID happened too, they were really popping. Like they were making money. But to be honest with you too, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but I ended up reconnecting with an old friend of mine, and we're talking, and she ends up texting me saying, yo, like, what are you doing with life now? And I tell her I'm doing that. And she's like, huh, thought you were going to do real estate. I always thought you were going to do real estate. And I remember that hit me. And I was like, oh man, it put me in a moment of life where I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, why I'm 23. Like, let me try these things, let me experience it. If I fail, I fail. At least I tell people I did try it, right? Rather than, no, I didn't do it. I got scared or whatever, right? Or just lying, saying, oh yeah, I do it, and I don't, right? And so yeah, that propelled me also to do what I do now.
Amazing. So for somebody listening that's wanting to be an entrepreneur, right? Maybe they're a few steps behind you. Can you explain what list you pulled from the county? how you marketed to them. Like, break down some of those steps of actually doing that wholesale deal.
Yeah, so I'll do this. I'll explain how we did it and how you should do it now. So what we did, we pulled the list from the county. We operated in North Carolina. So if you want to do North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, whatever the case is, just say Texas, for example, you would call Houston, Harris County, right? You tell them, hey, I need, or can you send me the list of the tax delinquency report of 2020, whatever the case is, right? Sometimes they'll give you a hard time. They'll say, no, I can't send that to you. Or sometimes it's already on the website. You can just pull it from there. Once you get that list, and it depends what you're looking for. If you want to target land, infill lots, or properties, just filter out, scrub the list yourself, figure out what property you want, highlight all the ones you like, green, the red ones, or the bad ones red, and then you start calling them, right? If you want to do it the way where you don't spend any money, just call it. It sucks. Yeah, obviously it's 1,000 leads you have to call. It's terrible. No one wants to do that, but you got to do it if you want to make the money.
When you say the ones that you want, how did you determine which ones you want?
So for us, since we did infill lots, we already knew what most buyers were looking for. For example,
developed neighborhood that didn't build on one of them.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of an abandoned lot.
Exactly. So we pretty much target the lots that were not landlocked, that the owner didn't own next to it. It had a certain size. It was a good shaped lot. It wasn't a flood zone. That's how we knew what was a good lot and what was a bad lot. And it was easy for us to scrub. But that's what we did. We just caught them, and magically we ended up getting a lead, and then we got another lead that same week. But how you should do it now, that's a little bit more easy, I think, and that may save you some time if you have money to invest. At least I would say you definitely want to go the buyer route first. Like, I think that's what I'm doing right now, and it would definitely help me out, where you market to buyers first with just bulk SMS, and you just say you can say a quick message like what I would do if I'm in a new market. I just say, hey, I have this 0.24 infill lot available with utilities access to utilities asking $24,000. Something simple just to catch their eye, right? You have to say that you're a new wholesaler or whatever, but just, make it seem like you have something to catch their attention. And from there you call them, right? The way I do this too is that in that message, I put a female's name into it, because most of the time, being honest, guys are going to see it and they're like, all right, well, let's see what this girl has to offer. Well, if you just use a guy's name, they may just brush past it or pass away. That's just what I experienced so far. So, I would put, like, the example, I'll put Samantha, right? Hey, it's Samantha from so-and-so company. I have this 0.24 lot available with utilities, asking $24,000, right? In this zip code, or just leave it empty. Don't say a zip code, because then they're going to take you saying where at. And then from there, you call them. You say, hey, my name is Carlos, right? I saw you were texting with Samantha about the property we had. Are you still looking for more lots? And they may ask you, yeah, I'm trying to buy in this area or that area. Oh, okay, well, what's your price point? What are you looking to buy at? They tell you what they're buying at, and then you find out what areas they're buying at, and they tell you what they want for that lot. And so you get all that information already, and that way when you're ready to go for the sellers, you know where to target. You already have that information. You don't have to waste your time going through a tax delinquency report, going through a probate list, trying to find the property and then find the buyer. You already have the buyer. Now you just find what he's looking for, right? And it's the easiest thing you can do. And then for the seller side, you go the SMS route, right? Or you can just cold call. But if you go through the SMS route, it's pretty expensive for sure. But there's a company I just started trying, and it's pretty good so far. I believe it's called Apex Blueprint. A guy by the name of Dan Fazio made it. He charges you like 0.0083 cents per message. So it's like $10 for like a few hundred messages that you send out. So you can get some good leads from there. And then you just target them, right? Hey, are you looking to sell your lot? Hey, are you in the market to sell that vacant lot you have on 123 Street? And you're going to get some no's. You get one yes, you get two yeses, or whatever the case is. And from there, you call those leads. You talk to them, and you build a report. You ask the right questions. Does it have a septic system? Is it connected to the city utilities? Are you the only one in the title? And you go from there. And then you start negotiating. You start giving your numbers. And
how did you figure out what a good price was?
Yeah, so there's two ways to do it. If you go with the developer route, where you sell to developers or builders at least, the way we did it, Josh and I, that he taught me was you go in like Zillow or Redfin, right? It's free at the time, or it is free, and you look at the area that your lot is in, that your data point is in, and you have a filter on for the year of that of the new building that sold, and make sure you do a 2021 year. And it's a certain size that's similar to your vacant lot, and you just see what new house is sold in that same neighborhood. And then from there, you add 3 of those houses, the top selling ones. And then from there, you go ahead and multiply that by 0.20 because at the time, our buyer buys at 20% market value for the lot. So, and then, we minus our fees and then minus what the buyer will buy it at. And that's what our number is. That's how we know what our number is.
Gotcha.
And we offer that to the seller. And so if they like it, they liked it. And you're good to go.
So what was the lot?
But yeah,
what did you get that first lot under contract for?
I believe it was $3,000.
Okay.
But you made
$3,000. So we had 2 deals. Remember, the first one we got it for $3,000. We ended up selling it for $12,000. And for the second one, I can't remember the exact number it was. We ended up making it ended up helping us make that $20,000. And then from that point on, Josh and I ended up going our separate ways to do a different type of business, or just approach it differently. Where I'm doing more residential and land, he's just doing straight up land.
Got it.
But still,
You had a breakthrough when you were more interested in wholesaling again the second time, and you said that the land was something you hadn't thought of. So what are some of the advantages of doing land? It sounds like they may be easier to calculate the value if you just take new builds, right? What are some other advantages about land?
So the biggest advantage to land is that when it comes to houses, there's sentimental value with it, right? For example, let's say you and your mom or your family grew up in that house for 50 plus years. You're the last child there. Your family's all passed away. Whatever the case is, you don't want to sell that house. It's hard for you to sell that house. Even if it's the best number in the world, you have so much value. You have so many memories. The seller doesn't want to sell it. But with land, as simple as it sounds, there's no sentimental value, depending what the case is, right? But majority of the time, there is none. Because at the end of the day, it's just dirt. It's just a piece of dirt, right? Maybe someone did pass away and they buried someone, but majority of the time, there's no sentimental value in it, and that's your biggest advantage with it. It's easier for you to negotiate because most sellers, when they hear that you're calling about that vacant lot they have, they're like, "Where's it at? Oh, that one? Yeah, I'm interested in selling. How much are you going to give me for it?" Right? And you go from there. You start negotiating, you start talking, and that's it. And most people, they overthink things like how I did. But my biggest advice too, when it comes to cold calling, because a lot of my friends will ask me this, "Man, I'm too scared to call," or "Man, I want to do it, but I'm just too scared to call." My biggest advice is go call them. You're going to mess up. You're going to stutter. You're going to say the wrong name. You're going to say the wrong, you're going to mess up. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you be a better salesperson, right? Because if you don't do any of that and you just stay scared and you don't call, you're not going to learn.
Right.
Just take that leap of faith. I promise you, after doing so many reps, you'll be way better than the day you first started. Record it. Record your first call, and then record the call where you made your first deal, and you're going to see a huge difference in how you sound the phone.
Oh man, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you that you were able to do that first land deal. You did it with a partner. Now you're doing your own deals. And where can we find you, Carlos? Do you have an Instagram account?
I do. I'm not really much of a social media guy, so my Instagram looks a little dead, but I do post stories. I do have some stories saved. But yeah, it's going to be Saint, so SAINT HERNANDZ. So it's Saint.Hernandez without the E between the D and Z. And you can see where I travel. I love my dog. I'm always with my dog. And yeah, I am looking to post a little bit more. And that's why I'm wearing a suit now, so I look a little more professional. So I'm building the page up. But I do want to say this too. If anyone's out there that does want someone to show them the ropes, I'm not a mentor. I'm not a guru. I'm not any of that. Just message me. Ask me, "Hey, how'd you do this? Hey, do you have a script I can use?" I'm more than happy to show you for free. Because I think at the end of the day, it's disappointing to see that people charge thousands of dollars for these things. And I want to be that guy that changes everything. That at least changes someone, right? Even if I help one person, that makes me happy. Because not many people have other people around them to push them, right? To go to the next level. And I want to be that person that can help them push them to the next level.
Thank you so much. How much can you share about what your goals are in 2024?
Yeah. So again, I closed my first residential property this past month. So I'm looking to close a few more this year. I'm actually building a team. I hired my first co-caller. I'm teaching her everything, and I'm excited to have her on board. Building the foundation for the company and everything. I got my websites and everything. So last year was more about figuring out the business. This year is more about actually getting the business set in stone. So I have a mark right online. Like people can reach out to me either for advice or can reach out to me, they're looking to sell their land. So I'm in the process of doing that, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for me. I couldn't do this without God, just being honest. I went through a lot of dark times, and I think having that belief and having that knowing that I can get through this because of him was awesome. And I did. I'm here now. I'm interviewing you, David. It's definitely a great experience, and I'm happy.
Thankful to have you on. You are a great storyteller. I'm so glad we got to get this out on the podcast, and I know it'll make a difference in at least one entrepreneur's life. So thank you so much, Carlos, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.